Oh, damn. I forgot to hit the intro. That's cool. I was going to just go, hey. I was going to do that thing that you do. Hello.
Hello and welcome to whatever the show's called.
No, I am going to tell you, I am stoked to be here tonight live with two of my favorite people in the world. And that is none other than Jay, a.k.a. Panda Red from TikTok. What's going on?
What's up? Happy to be here. Give you something to do.
And the co-host of the Writer's Block and a flurry of other things that we're going to get into, Rylend Grant. What's going on, Rylend?
Howdy. I'm fucking stoked to be here with you guys. It's nice to hang out and talk comics, you know? I don't get to do that enough.
No, at all. So
we're all so removed from the comic sphere. It's really hard to get it off our chest.
Yeah. So, what if we just fucked everybody and like talk football right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Julio Jones is just traded to the Tennessee Titans. What do you guys think? Still has a little bit left in the tank, or
who the fuck needs a fan base, right?
Yeah. How do you think is Aaron Rodgers gonna? Yeah. Yep. I got to tell you, man. Just got an opportunity. Just read it. Huge coming out of the gate swinging. You're doing it again, brother. You're doing it again.
We're talking Suicide Jockeys, right? Did we mention that?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yes, we are.
you just started talking about the book.
We're just gonna keep skipping intros for the rest of the video.
Yeah, exactly.
Jay, this is a co-host part here.
So for those who don't know, I am Rylend Grant. I am the Ringo award-winning creator of fine comics like Aberrant and Banjax, which are available in fine comic shops everywhere and on Amazon and Comixology and all that good news. I also created a couple of pretty fun Kickstarter comics, my astral projection thriller, The Jump, and my Fargo-esque crime drama, The Peacekeepers. Those are available now via BackerKit. So if you go to thejump2.backerkit.com, all one word, the jump 2, the number 2, you can check all that out and get a bunch of signed copies of shit and con exclusives. But we are here now today to talk about my latest and greatest, and it is this bonkers Tokusatsu comic. For those who don't know, Tokusatsu is the Japanese sci-fi action genre that includes things like Ultraman and Power Rangers and kaiju films like Godzilla. And so my comic is called Suicide Jockeys. It is in comic shops in August via SourcePoint Press, which is a wonderful publisher who I know Comic Core readers and listeners and followers are very excited about. And I love being in business with them. And so that hit shops in August. It was in the June previews. You can go down to your LCS right the fuck now and tell them that you want to order the whole run. The first arc is scheduled for 4 issues. It's going to blow your doors off. It's kind of Voltron meets the Fast and the Furious. And as Chad started to say, the first issue is kind of fucking bonkers. So there we go.
Dude. Okay, good night. No, brother.
There we go. You wrapped it up in one. We're good. That's it.
That's it. I honestly, when you said Fast and Furious meets Voltron, you can't. That is awesome. And actually, the con life part of it too. I mean, how on spot was that? It's like you might been at a couple cons.
It feels like you're venting a little bit while I'm reading those segments where it's like, oh, this feels from in the shit. I can feel the bitterness from behind the the words here.
It is such a weird thing to go from, you know, I mean, I was a screenwriter for, I don't know, 10 plus years before I dipped into comics. I never really had to like face fans, you know. I'm used to. I'm in my writing den right now. You know, I have this office that's just full of fucking craziness, and I write from my cave. And you know, I can be bitter and angry and not have to do anything. And then I get into this con game, and you know, not only am I sitting at a table signing books, but I also have to do the panel thing. You know, I also fucking Chad ropes me into hosting the show where I'm interviewing other creators and all sorts of shit like that. And so suddenly it's like, you know, suddenly it's highly visible. It's constant interactions. And so it's just I mean, it's awesome. And it is a fucking privilege to be able to do this shit.
Right.
I mean, you know better than anybody. I mean, like you went from, you know, being a fucking college student to having 500,000 followers on TikTok, and everybody's scrutinizing every fucking word that you say, and every second of video. And so your experience is kind of mine on steroids, I have to imagine. But yeah, so for the uninitiated, I mean, you know, the folks out there haven't read the book. So the idea is that, I mean, all of my books kind of have this theme where it's like, you know, my first two books were, I mean, one was kind of a military book, but it was a world where there were superheroes. And the second book is kind of a dark superhero noir. And so, there's always this thing where it's like, it's always bugged me about when I'm reading superhero books where it's like, okay, well, you know, if there were superheroes, they would be like, look at the fucking Kardashians. They do nothing. Yeah. And like they have hundreds of millions of followers and make billions of dollars. And it's like, these people would be just mega fucking celebrities. And you know what I'm saying? It's like you and I have a fucking hard time with some of this shit. So imagine like if you were saving the goddamn world every week.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so the idea, we deal with it in Aberrant and Banjax, where it's like they're superheroes in those worlds that become these kind of megastars. This deals with the other side of it, where it is this kind of Tokusatsu crew, you know, this Fast and the Furious style crew that they fight monsters, but they climb into these kind of armored tanks and airplanes to go do this. But yeah, they become kind of superstars, right? Right. Well, you know, this takes place. Okay, so these guys are megastars. They're saving the world, and then one mission goes horribly wrong 10 years ago, and so we kind of join them 10 years later. The team is fractured. They haven't talked to each other in 10 years, and they're in sort of opposite corners of the world, and it's gone well for some people. In fact, one of them became kind of a Kardashian-esque reality star, which we'll see in issue 2. For some, it's not gone so well, and the kind of leader of the group, this sort of like latter-day Bruce Willis-esque guy named Denver Wallace.
He looked very Bruce Willis-esque in that first like painting image that you have him, where he's leaning against a wall and everything. That felt like a Roadhouse sort of image of a Bruce Willis-like character. Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's a direct homage to the Roadhouse cover, but yeah, it was. You know, it's definitely. I mean, you know, Bruce Willis was a guy who was like babyface handsome early in his career, like Moonlighting, and now he is this kind of like rugged badass, like I might fucking headbutt you handsome. Yeah. And so yeah, he was very much a model for Denver, and also Bruce, you know, he lost his hair, but he's weathered it well, and all of that stuff. So we find him when we meet him. He is on the fucking con circuit, and so the idea is that, you know, these heroes are doing cons next to fucking TV stars and stuff like that. And so when we meet him, he's in a fucking autograph alley between, essentially, I mean, we don't come right out and say it, but it's very obvious that he's between Lou Ferrigno and Eric Estrada. Yeah. And he's fucking hating life. You know,
the Power Rangers. This Power Rangers has-been guy who's just sitting in autograph alley, just like, just get the fuck out of here. I just want to go home.
He used to save the world, and he used to have millions of dollars and legions of fans, and now he's like, you know, trying to peddle $20 autographs and upsell fucking mongoloids, you know, trying to get them to buy t-shirts and bobbleheads and stuff like
exactly.
that. And so yeah, I mean, it was a thing that was completely foreign to me. I mean, I've spent about the last 4 or 5 years, like, you know, in these. I mean, I don't do a ton of cons because I don't have a ton of time. Like, you know, I have a 4-year-old. I have another job, and my day job's writing movies and TV shows. So I don't get a ton of time to do it, but I do all the Southern California cons, and like tabling sucks. You know, I mean, it's like it's just. There's so many people in an autograph alley, and they all want to sell you your fucking book, and like, and fans are there to like watch the next Avengers trailer or whatever, and they don't really want to buy your fucking book. Like, if they saw your book, they might want to buy it, but
they just want to acknowledge that you're there and keep walking, just like, oh, cool, look at that. It's like a zoo, but for important people.
I mean, Rylend, how many times have you gotten this one where they make eye contact with you, but they don't want to talk to you? They're just like, oh, fuck.
Well, they try not to make eye contact at all. Eye contact is like a kiss of death, because most of them feel like they have to stop, and so it's like, I mean, their goal is they walk through the artist alley or whatever, and their eyes are on the ground, and their goal is to get like from the door to the fucking snack bar or whatever without having to speak to anyone. And everyone is trying everything they can to fucking pull the customer in, you know.
Exactly.
And I'm terrible at it because I'm just an angry, you know, a bitter asshole. But there are guys like, you know, like David Pepos, who did Spencer and Locke and just did what was the book he did for fucking Aftershock, Scout's Honor, which is great. If you haven't checked out Scout's Honor, read it. It's fucking awesome. And Pepos is awesome, but he is amazing at fucking tabling at cons. And it's just like, you know, he has like these opening lines, like, you know, Spencer and Locke, the pitch for Spencer and Locke is what if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? And so it'll be like, you know, hey, do you like Calvin and Hobbes? Hey, do you like Calvin and Hobbes? Hey, do you like Calvin and Hobbes? And he'll throw out 30 of them, but man, he hooks somebody in, and it's like a tractor beam, you know? And he pulls them in, and he pulls them in. When I'm most successful is when I'm tabling next to Pepos, and I always, you know, I have ins with con organizers, so I'm like, put me next to Pepos. And so I am like the tiny fish that's like taking the bits that are falling out of the shark's mouth.
They're taking the people that are trying to find someone to talk to, so they don't have to talk to Calvin and Hobbes guy.
Well, no, I mean, you know, they'll sell his book, and then he'll be like, "Oh, did you check out Rylend Grant over here?" He's awesome at it. But yeah, but I'm terrible. The only way I get people is with my crazy variant covers, because I've been known for the crazy variants from fucking moment one. Like my first variant was, "This is going to be great radio," but I'm gonna go grab some stuff. You can still hear me, which is weird. That's got to be weird, right? I'm just fucking talking off camera right now.
But and we're admiring the Golden Girls.
Yeah. We're just pretending the Magnum PI is saying it.
Yeah, so my very first aberrant was my very first variant was a Billy D. Williams variant, and it is actually I have.
Here, I'm putting you on the big screen. Yeah. Hold on.
Well, I have the ad up there if you can see it. Do you see the Colt 45? That's a light up
sign.
Yeah. Bar, and it says Colt 45 works every time, and so I have Billy D. Holding like the regular issue of Aberrant, saying Aberrant works every time. And I put his government on there, William D. Williams, William December D. Williams. And then and then we've had other ones that have kind of caused, like we have a Gremlins variant of Banjax in the Dory's Tavern bar, which everybody went crazy for. That was a San Diego Comic Con variant. And then for the Ringo Awards, after it was nominated for 4, we had a Rocky 4 variant of Banjax, which people went crazy for, with James Brown on the cover. And then we did like Pop Culture HQ wanted us to do something, so we did a Weekend at Bernie's awesome. Variant, which is and so I'm known for these things. And so the only way I pull people in at cons is I have a table full of these things, and I have like at least a dozen crazy ones. And so they'll be walking by, and again, they want to blow right past me, but then they're like, "Whoa, is that Gremlins? Is that Top Gun?" Yeah, and then I have them fucking hooked, and they're like, "Wait, Top Gun? Wait, no, a Point Break? What?" And then suddenly they're buying 5 comics from me. Exactly. And so this is my secret fucking weapon, and I kept it going with the Kickstarters. I mean, I had the last Kickstarter I did, we had a Back to the Future variant, we had a Mandalorian variant, we had a Magnum PI variant. And so we have upped our game with Suicide Jockeys. So as you alluded to, the issue 1 variant is an homage to Roadhouse. It's that Roadhouse cover. I think we did for issue 2 we did a Bullet variant, which is really awesome. It's just a beautiful Bullet poster that I sent up. And then issue 3 is a Top Gun cover. I kind of can't do a series without doing a Top Gun cover. And then I don't know what the issue 4 one is yet. But all that said, SourcePoint also has they have this amazing retailer variant program where they allow 10 retailers to get their own exclusive cover to that shop. And so there are 10 of those that are coming out. And so, so some people come in with their own ideas, their own artists, and they do it and I approve it or whatever. Some come in and they're like, "Hey, we like the covers you've done. We want to work with you." And so issue 1 is going to have at least 12 covers. And that's before we start, that's before we start getting into the con season and everything. So we're going to go fucking bonkers, but, anyway,
you're gonna have a collector market out there just for every cover you do for this issue, regardless of what it is.
Well, I mean, there are going to be people that are pissed at me because there are people who have like every Rylend Grant cover. You know, I mean,
Oh,
there were a
man.
lot. You know, I mean, because Aberrant went 10 issues,
Right.
and there were there were regular and variant for all 10 issues,
Mhm.
and then there were a handful of con variants and event variants and
Right.
stuff like that. And then so there are people that have like every Aberrant cover, every Banjax cover, and that's like and they have my Kickstarter covers,
Mhm.
and that's manageable. But then when you get to like 12 issue one covers, there's yeah, there it is right there. And it's like the Denver Wallace. He's the baddest jockey in the business. His nights are filled with fast action, big monsters, and beautiful women. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Suicide Jockeys.
Oh, that's perfect. That is great. I can't imagine how many covers you're going to have by the end of this, because just taking into account that the first run is 4 issues and your first has 12 covers.
Well, yeah, it's just the retailers all hop on for issue 1. Some of them stick around with the variants on the other ones, but it's a handful. So it's not going to be that crazy. But I mean, the thing
game even better.
Yeah, well, the thing is too, it's like they do. I mean, every retailer that signs on for a different thing, but there are like metal covers that come out of that, and foil covers, and I don't know. It should be fun. I just like having different shit. It's like when a new artist comes in and says like, I want to do a take on this, and they get some high profile artists to fucking do this stuff. I can't tell you who's doing them now, because I think there's supposed to be big announcements from those things. But it's awesome when like, one of your fucking art heroes comes in and says, I want to do a cover on this. So that should be cool.
I could imagine. I mean, anytime I've interacted with anybody that is, larger than a fucking TikToker, I'm automatically like, why the fuck are you talking to me? So I can imagine that having them actually want to do a cover for a thing that you wrote would be just
I think the ideal crossover would be a Panda Red crossover cover. There you go.
Panda Red. Well, you're in the animation game, right?
Yeah, I'm a aspiring video game artist. Still not graduated yet, but yeah, I do drawings.
Yeah. Well,
hold on. Well, you guys, I'm gonna go.
If you draw, you're an artist. You take the
I'll be right back. I gotta grab this.
It counts. Aspiring means I'm not hired yet. Aspiring just means that nobody's paying me for it yet, other than myself. So
yeah, with your internet following, you should fucking do a comic. You would murder on Kickstarter. It would be fucking.
Hoping. Yeah.
it would go berserk. You should let's talk about it. I spend a lot of time on my show talking creators into doing Kickstarters for their comic books, because
great,
there are any number of reasons, but
please give me another thing to do. I want to hear it.
I'm not going to subject everyone out there to that, but you would particularly, like, I mean, you're in the art game already, so fucking knock it out. We'll talk about it.
To give you guys.
What are you doing?
To give you guys, aspiring artist, but yeah, this is from the last Drink and Draw.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
I think I have,
and then
over here.
Fuck aspiring. Yeah, you got it.
I think I have. I've been doing a thing on stream. I know this is a. I don't want to steal all of your time because this is a thing for Suicide Jockeys, but I've been doing a drawing on stream for Red Hood for the last like month or so. If my camera will adjust.
Yeah.
Let's do this. There it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
yeah.
That when I think of other big art, timing's perfect. Well, I can just imagine having a number of big artists come in to do the covers for this. I can't imagine what crazy shit you're going to get into the later issues. Just reading the first issue, there's a bunch of fucking crazy. Do you have a bunch of crazy monsters planned for the thing?
Yeah. It gets really bonkers. I mean, the first one, the first issue feels like, it feels like the first act of a big action movie. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is.
Yeah, absolutely does.
I am playing with time and narrative structure like I normally do. I mean, that was one of the things that, I wrote in Hollywood for, for 10 plus years before I started doing this, and did work for J.J. Abrams and Ridley Scott and John Woo and Justin Lin and blah, blah, blah. But the problem is, like, you can write like 5 different things in Hollywood, right? You know, they make 5 different kinds of movies. They want those movies written the same way. Right. And I got really good at writing those movies. I can just phone them in, you know what I'm saying? And they bought my house and whatever, blah, 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 blah. But after 10 years of doing it, and I always feel like an asshole complaining about the guy that gets paid to write movies. I was like, this is kind of boring, and I don't know if I can do this for another 10 years. Like I was kind of falling out, and more importantly, like my shit got stale. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't inspired. I just wasn't doing good work.
Right.
And so comics kind of saved me creatively, because I mean, the beauty of comics is you can do anything, you know, within reason, any way you want to do it, as long as it's good. As long as it's good, it'll find a fucking audience, and someone will embrace it. And so when I sat down to do comics, I just made this deal with myself that I was never going to tell a straightforward story. I was gonna mess with point of view and unreliable narrators and experimental elements and playing with time and playing with space. And issue 2 of Banjax is told from the point of view of somebody who hasn't slept in like 7 days, and it's literally driving him mad. And so you're seeing everything from his point of view, and you don't know what's real and what isn't.
Right.
And that book in general, it's a dual protagonist story. So the odd issues are told from one man's point of view. The even issues are told from another man's point of view, and they're telling the same story, but very different takes on it. And you're not given any answers. So in the end, you're left to sort through it and be like, well, I guess this happened. You know, and I got crazy with some shit. I like there is an issue of Aberrant that is told. One of the characters is dying on an operating table,
right?
And he's a huge fan of Jeopardy, and so while he's dying, he imagines himself on an episode of Jeopardy. His opponents in the Jeopardy game are his opponents in like the action of the comic book.
Right.
All of the categories have to do with major events in his life, and it becomes a kind of this is your life story where he picks a category, and then we see a big, and it's bonkers. It's crazy. And so I have, back to Suicide Jockeys, doubled down on a lot of that shit. So issue 1 is kind of straightforward, even though I'm messing with narrative structure and time and the whole 9 yards, and you see that I'm setting the stage for things to go crazy.
It feels like a big twist is coming eventually. Like I can see the building blocks of it showing up later. Yeah,
and there's gonna be a lot of it. And so issue 2, you spend a good portion of the issue, as I alluded to earlier, watching the sort of terrible Kardashian-like reality show of one of the characters. You know, we're completely unapologetic about it. And then issue 3, Denver, the protagonist, ends up having this like running conversation with a Zen master from 500 years ago. Oh, wow. And it's all him kind of. It's him psychologically working out what he has to do. You know what I'm saying? And so is it happening or isn't it happening? On what time plane is it happening? How is this happening? All of these things. I mean, there's a very reasonable explanation for it that you can buy into, or you can buy into other explanations for it. Right. And so, you know, we set up pretty early that like, this is a world where a lot of crazy kind of things can happen. And
well, like you can see in the background of multiple character shots that it's not just the style of characters that you have as the main characters. There's also like Power Ranger-like characters. There's superhero-like characters in the background that you can see. So just like context clues you can put together, this whole world is insane to a level that most people can't comprehend. Like,
but you mentioned something that I want to touch on. Two things, and one, the comic book community on YouTube. It's up and down. It's everything from readers to collectors to speculators. I want to dive into the speculation game real quick, because you do have a book that Collider is reporting that it's being made into a TV show.
Oh yeah. That's that is a blast from the past. Aberrant, my political action thriller. I think it was 2 weeks before issue 2 hit comic shops. It was Option for Television by Tony Krantz, who it's funny, a very smart reviewer described this as 24 with superheroes, and so it was Tony Krantz produced and helped create 24. So the producer of 24 decided to make it into a TV show. And you know, he produced Felicity and did Mulholland Drive for David Lynch, and you know, he's got 100. Most recently, Wu Assassins on Netflix, which is another big action show. So that's a good thing. But yeah, we're in the throes of that. I mean, that was like that. The progress of that, the momentum of that, took a big blow with COVID and everything, because it's hard to shoot anything during a pandemic, but giant action shows, globe-trotting action shows, that is the most difficult thing. So, but yeah, we're reinflating the tires on it and rocking and rolling, despite other commitments. But yeah, that's cool. So, so yeah, I mean, hopefully we get to see it on the screen. It's weird, because there's been stuff in that, The Boys came out, and you can't not. This has some things in common with The Boys. It's not The Boys, but it's like, but it's a, it's a karmic cousin of The Boys, and so you can't not like react to The Boys with what you're doing. It's a way to kind of change up our approach a little bit with it, and it's how Hollywood works. Like, they want to fucking react to everything. You know what I'm saying? By the time this comes out, like, nobody's gonna remember what happened in season 1 of The Boys. So I don't know why we're paying so much attention to it. But yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's just at the moment where you're advertising it. Anything that looks at superheroes negatively will be compared to The Boys. It's like any group superhero movie will always be compared to the Avengers. It's regardlessly gonna happen. So at least acknowledging it is a good stepping off point of going, it's kind of like that, but not that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other thing that I want to talk about that you touched on it was when your lead character dives into the Zen aspect, and I believe you may have like drawn some experience on that from where?
That's a good. You just lobbing one over the plate. Yeah. Let me take a swing at this. Let me get it over the fence. For whatever it's worth, I am an ordained Soto Zen Buddhist monk. And that's really how this thing came to be, to a certain degree. So I am, because of that, Soto Zen is a Japanese tradition, and so because of that, I have all these weird ties to Japan and people who work in Japan, and so a fellow monk, this guy named Brad Warner, who's kind of awesome, and we just had him on the if those of you watch my show, we had him on not too long ago talking about writing Zen books with another great monk, but. He's written about a dozen books, but I mean, this is a guy who sold like hundreds of thousands of books, but he wrote this book called Hardcore Zen, which is fucking phenomenal. And so if you're interested in Zen, particularly what's going on in America with Zen, he's a former punk rocker who packed everything up and moved to Japan years ago. And he spent about a dozen years in Japan working for Zubaraya Productions, which is a company that was founded by the guy who created Godzilla. But they're best known for, I mean, they do dozens of shows and movies, but they're best known for doing all the Ultraman shows. And so he was, for about a dozen years, an executive and a producer on Ultraman. And so Brad is kind of our Tokusatsu expert. And so when I tell you Voltron meets Fast and the Furious, like, I have Fast and the Furious covered. I have for about 15 years now written action movies in Hollywood. And one of my claims to fame is that I have written for the directors of, I think, 7 of the 9 Fast and the Furious movies right now. So I have Fast and the Furious down.
And the ride?
What's that?
And the ride.
The ride. And Brad, Brad has the Tokusatsu element covered. Again, he's not only has he worked on this stuff, but he is like a historian of this on this stuff. Right. But then also, Brad is also this prolific author himself. Again, Hardcore Zen and Sit Down and Shut Up is another great one. Look at the art on that; it's pretty gorgeous. But
so cool.
It's really good. But I have them all here. He's written about a dozen books, and you should check out his books. But so Brad and I sort of created this together. I mean, I did a lot of the heavy lifting because Brad is busy with a lot of his own stuff. But yeah, so we kind of created this together, and he made sure I have the action stuff covered. He's making sure Tokusatsu fans are having a legit experience also. But then also when 2 Zen monks walk into a bar, like, you can't help but sort of start to legislate that stuff. And so that's the problem with this thing is, like, I'm from the Hollywood tradition, and so I'm it's this meets this comes very easy to me. You know what I'm saying? And that's a quick and easy way to kind of convey what you're doing. The problem is, like, I think that that makes it sound like this big poppy popcorny thing, and it is to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is like I've always, I mean, some of my I have my snooty film taste also, but then there's this other side of me where like I love fucking Fast and Furious more than anything. Like
Exactly.
when the new one drops on the 24th, like I'm gonna be there like when the fucking movie theater opens up. I may fucking camp out outside. But like the Michael Bay verse is like one of my fucking favorite things in the world. Like give me Armageddon, give me The Rock any day of the week. Like I love them. And so something with that like swagger and that spirit is it's always a tone that I wanted to achieve. And I think I have to a certain degree with this. All of that aside, this thing also has like, it has an extra dollop of heart, of soul, of, it's a character drama in the vein of Boogie Nights. It deals with family, like in that sense, you know what I'm saying? And so, and so that first issue is a little poppier, but then we kind of take the gloves off and we get into like the family, the character, it becomes a character drama in a really interesting way. And then with that comes us kind of wrestling with some of, in a Zen way, from a Zen perspective, we're not like teaching Zen in this thing, but we are like Zen is about wrestling with like life's big, hairy existential questions. Who am I? Why am I? What is the nature of the universe? What's the nature of time and space and all of these things? And so we're wrestling with those questions in a fun, heightened, interesting way. Like we are throwing that paint on the canvas of like a big badass Hollywood action movie. And I think it's fucking awesome. And so everything that Brad gets into one of these books, and it's like he's when he's teaching Zen in these books, he's talking about, well, he has for 30 years been a punk rock bassist. He has for years like worked on monster movies and stuff like that, and he is teaching Zen from that perspective. And so we are now kind of teaching Zen from the perspective of a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, my favorite type of comics are when you can visually see it happening in your head, when it's not just panels on the page, but you can kind of piece it together like a movie. And I have to admit, there's writing and art in this that conveys the sort of camera work of, you can feel exactly when it would happen or how it's being conveyed. So it hits it in a way that you can definitely see the movie inspiration for it, but it feels like its own thing, and it gives its own messages. You can again feel that it's going to be coming down the road, that more things are coming for it. Especially with that first issue that you have to put out. You have to introduce a brand new world to a bunch of people who don't know it yet. So,
and it's so big. It's so big.
Yeah.
it's not easy, but that's a huge compliment. I mean, it's I mean, if there's one thing I had coming into the business, that I went to grad school at the American Film Institute Conservatory. I studied directing there, so that was where David Lynch went, and Darren Aronofsky, and a bunch of other snooty ass fucking filmmakers. So I have my very like snooty filmmaking education, of course, and and then I got spit out into the world, and I got again, I sound like an asshole, but I got stuck writing action movies. I love action movies more than anything. There might be give me fucking Die Hard and 48 Hours and all that shit first and foremost, and every day of the week. But so yeah, like all of that stuff has been applied to films for about 15 years now. And so I treat each one of these comics like a little film I'm directing. I mean, if you look at my comics, I don't know if you caught it or not, but I give myself a writer director credit on everything.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
It pisses some comic people off, but they can go fuck themselves. But I treat everything like that. And I mean, if you look at with Aberrant, it's like Aberrant starts with a fucking music cue. There are like 4 or 5 songs in issue 1 of Aberrant. It starts with "Don't Worry, Be Happy" by Bobby McFerrin, and the first thing you see are the lyrics of that song, and then they keep popping up, and you literally hear that music while you're reading it, and that was, I mean, when I sat down with Tony Krantz for the first time to talk about Aberrant, he was like, yeah, like I started flipping through this, and it just felt like I was watching a TV show. Which again was a big compliment. And so it's like, it's like there's there is, I haven't been doing this as long as other people in the business. But I've been telling visual stories for a long time. So if I've brought anything with me, I brought that.
When you set out and create something, do you put it in the back of your mind? Well, this could be a movie. This could be a series.
It's hard to ignore that right now because like we are in the age of IP.
Yeah.
Hollywood is in this age of IP where everything has to be based on something, right?
Okay.
A comic book, a book. IP is intellectual property, so a book, a video game, whatever. It's like original ideas don't sell in Hollywood anymore. I mean, that was how my career went. I mean, I got when I got spit out into Hollywood 15 years ago, like you wrote a script, and if it was good, you sold it. And then the financial crisis happened right around the time the writer strike happened, and Hollywood went fucking berserk and imploded, and they used that as kind of an excuse to remake the way they do business. And so overnight they were making about a third as many films as they were making, yesterday. And that coincided with this IP revolution. So it's like everything had to be based on something. And so original ideas weren't selling. And so no matter how good your fucking script was, like it was a long shot. And so I had a few lean years, and actually considered like doing something else, and then finally I wised up and I was like, look, if they want IP, why don't I just give them IP? And so I took an idea that I would have, a year ago written as a spec and tried to sell it in Hollywood. And I knew I couldn't do that. So I wrote it as a short story. I got the short story published. And then overnight we had a bidding war on the short story. We had Justin Lin coming off of Fast 6, the largest opening in Universal history on one side. And then we had Brett Ratner and Robert De Niro on the other side. And fucking Tyler Perry came in and made an offer, and other people too. It was bonkers. It was just crazy. And so, my reps, I mean, this was a new thing that was happening back then. And my reps were like, great, it's not going to happen again. And I'm like, I know that it is. Watch. And so short and sweet, I've done it with short stories probably 6 or 7 times since then. I was talking to you guys off camera before this thing started, and hasn't fully been announced yet, but I can whisper that I just sold a TV series to Lionsgate, which is based on a short story that I wrote. And then I've started now, after years of doing it with short stories and with books and stuff like that, I've started doing it with comics. And so, I think it's like, it's how I've survived. Look, I went to AFI with like, 130 some odd of like the most talented, people visually, artistically, like from a dramatic standpoint I've ever met in my life. And like 115 or 120 of them are back in Pennsylvania selling insurance. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was not what they wanted, right?
Right.
And most of it was that, well, this is a hard fucking game and you have to keep reinventing yourself, and you have to fucking take it on the chin over and over again. And every time you get knocked up, you got to get up twice and all of that shit. And you have to adapt. And like what I was lucky to kind of fucking realize one day while I was sitting on the fucking toilet was like, you can't be a screenwriter anymore. And it's not enough to be a novelist or a comic book writer or any of these things. You have to just be a writer. You have to be a creator. You are a storyteller. And so if they won't let you tell your story in this arena, then you have to go somewhere fucking else. You know what I'm saying? And the beauty of like, the beauty of a comic is like, well, maybe someday it'll get turned into a film or a TV show. But when you write a spec script, it goes out once, and if it doesn't sell, it's dead. It sits on a fucking shelf for the rest of your life. I have dozens of fucking dead movies that are sitting on shelves that will never see the light of day. Right. If you create a comic book, you hire someone to draw it, and then at worst you fucking put it on Amazon yourself, or you take it to fucking Kickstarter. What probably ends up happening is a great fucking publisher like SourcePoint wants to put it in comic shops, and then it is something, and it lives, and people read it and consume it and enjoy it and love it. And it doesn't just die. You're not screaming into the fucking Grand Canyon, right? Right. And then maybe it becomes a TV show or something down the line. So when I'm creating one of these things, like I can't I can't ignore the fact that it could be a TV show but I'm not like, I'm not doing it because of that. I mean, you know, like this business is, it is like, there are way too many like screenwriters who are trying to sort of turn their failed scripts into comics, hoping that that gives it a second life or something like that. That's a bad way. Like that costs you tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of fucking hours to create what usually amounts to a fart. You know what I'm saying? So like,
it wasn't created for that. You didn't write it to be a comic book. So
yeah, if you're going to create a comic, like you got to love comics. You gotta aspire to create comics. You got to be happy with it being a comic. And yeah, and I love comics. So it's like, you know, if I you know, I mean, if I thought I could like, you know, keep my house and you know, support my kid and all that, just like sitting in a fucking cave making comics, I would probably do it because it's a lot. You know, I'm a lot happier when I'm doing it, but you know, you don't make a ton of money as an independent creator. So, so I'm stuck writing these fucking movies. God damn it.
Oh, the sorrow. I'm stuck writing action movies. Shit.
Well, I mean, a lot of that. I mean, Jay, you and I have talked about it, and Rylend brought up a point, and you know, there are so many good books out there that aren't with the DC or the Marvel that nobody. But now, because of the pandemic, you're seeing like books like Cantu skyrocket in value, and all these other, and all these other books are just like bouncing. I mean, again, I mean. When I was a kid, everybody collected baseball cards. Now, baseball cards, people are getting beat up in Target parking lots because they're trying to get baseball cards. I mean, people, I think the stimulus checks are just going to people purchasing more things that they couldn't afford before. Yeah. But I think the collector market, and as soon as you have that price tag that, hey, this is going to be a film, this is going to be a TV series, books are going through the roof.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean,
and I mean, honestly, like you said, Rylend, you're a storyteller, regardless of what medium it's in. Being able to tell a story in any capacity is good. I mean, that's the availability of being able to do it, and especially with comics, you can kind of have the cinematic aspect that you would have if you wrote it in TV or movie, but you don't need to be worried about budget. You don't need to be worried about what fucking camera do I need to use this for. You can just make what you were thinking. So I could imagine as a writer, is that kind of freeing, just being able to make exactly what you wanted to see on the page just pop up instead of having to hope a fucking director gets it perfectly right. Like
100%. And yeah, being able to direct it yourself is a big deal. And yeah, being able to do what you want. I mean, it's I mean, I actually managed to get a movie shot over the pandemic with Emil Hirsch, but you know, the pandemic gave us all these restrictions, right? I mean, it's like a big sci-fi mind fuck, right? And it's like, well, all the stuff that we were going to do before the pandemic, it's like, well, we got to cut this scene, and for budget, we got to cut that back, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. It's like you're saying, there's none of that in comics. You just do exactly what you want. And like for me, it's like I said, when I went to AFI, I had some snooty tastes, and you know, I mean, I always loved my action, but it was like I saw Pulp Fiction when I was a kid, and I said I want to do that, and I went to AFI to make Pulp Fiction, but by the time I got spit out into the you know the job world or whatever, Hollywood stopped making those movies basically. You know, like the entire independent film movement dried up, kind of moved on to television and mutated. And, you know, I mean, today Pulp Fiction would be a 10 episode, you know, series on Netflix, and
it'd be a miniseries.
And you know, 15 years ago, Breaking Bad would have been, you know, a Sundance movie, you know. And so, you know, there were these there were things I wanted to do, and you know, this the Peacekeepers, that book I flashed earlier, my kind of Fargo-esque crime drama. It's like, well, if you're the Coen brothers, you can make Fargo in Hollywood right now. Like, you know, almost anyone else, absolutely not. You know, it's just Hollywood's not making these movies anymore. You know, you become a name in TV, and then maybe you can, you know, maybe you can do your fucking Mayor of Easttown or whatever. But you know, when I did it, if I was going to do this, I couldn't do it on film or TV. You know, maybe now that it's a comic, I'll be able to do it on film or TV.
Yeah,
That's
maybe. Now you got this.
Irony of all that. But if I wanted to go make my snooty Sundance movie, I had to do it in comic form. And so so it's almost it's what you're talking about, but it's almost like the weird bizarro version of it, because it's like, you know, it wasn't about like, oh well, now if I want to have 100 helicopters, I can have it. It's like, well, if I want to have a fucking like, you know, meandering character drama about a guy like hunting down his brother who's a criminal, then I can do it. You know,
you can tell the story that you want to and not have to worry about a studio picking it up.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, and then again, the irony of it is like, they're like, oh wow, you know, this is interesting, and it's a comic. And so, I mean, it's funny the cachet that being a comic creator gives you in Hollywood. Like my partner on my podcast, David Avalone, who writes a lot of he writes Elvira and Betty Page and for Dynamite, and he does Drawing Blood with Kevin Eastman. He worked in Hollywood for like 20 plus years in various capacities. He directed, he edited, he produced, he did any number of things. And like, he could not get any traction in LA as like a studio writer. Like for those years, like that 20 years of Hollywood experience meant nothing to a studio executive. But the moment he became a comic creator, you know, they were like, oh, well, he's a comic creator. You know, let's bring him on in and ask him what he thinks about our big studio film. And so, you know, right now they're doing the Red Sonja movie at a studio. I don't remember which one. And he was like the comic guy they brought in to shepherd the Red Sonja movie. 20 years Hollywood experience, like he wasn't qualified, but he writes a couple of fucking Elvira comics for Dynamite for a song. And suddenly, like, you know, he's this hot commodity. And so, so I've seen that to a certain degree too, where it's like, it just kind of gives you, you know, I mean, everybody in Hollywood is a fucking screenwriter. And so if you can say you're something else, you know, then it gives you some cachet. It's weird.
I mean, I can relate. I mean, I didn't step out to be the fucking TikTok personality. I mean, I couldn't get a single drawing sold when I was just some fuckhead who goes to some preppy art college. So, but as soon as you get your name out for something else, then all of a sudden you're a hot commodity or something that people want. So I can imagine that could be something crazy, especially in Hollywood.
So what I'll ask both of you guys, like Rylend first, like what comics influenced you the most when you were younger?
That's an interesting question. You know, so I was one of the rubes that got pulled into a comic shop because of the death of Superman.
Me too.
But then there was so much interesting shit going on then. You know, that was when, you know, the image revolution was happening. And then most importantly, I found, you know, Vertigo books, you know, Preacher and Hellblazer back then. And then, you know, and then 100 Bullets. And those were really the books that really kind of, you know, formed me. I mean, you saw what was possible in comics then. You know, it wasn't superheroes pointing and winking and punching each other or whatever. It was, you know, you were dealing with like big time human stories and big existential questions like we were talking about earlier in those books. And that was pretty awesome. And then like, you know, and then I mean, it's the beauty of a comic shop. It's like having a great comic shop owner that can go in and like pull out, you know, I remember like the first time I read Reed Fleming, The World's Toughest Milkman. Like I almost fucking shat myself. It was the funniest thing I'd ever read in my life. It just made me cry. Incredible. But then like, then you realize like, you know, like Marvel made Iron Man an alcoholic in the late 70s. You know what I'm saying? Like that Demon in a Bottle arc was, I mean, if there's one thing that is like the most influential on me as like a comic creator, and it's probably one of the 5 most influential things on me as a storyteller was that Demon in a Bottle arc. It's like take one of your A-listers and make him an alcoholic. And you know, and he is this superhero. He has this fucking invincible fucking, you know, suit that he puts on. But you know, this substance has a hold of him, right? And he can't fucking see through that. That was profound shit. So yeah, that was the stuff. I mean, the stuff that was like really getting down to fucking like bare bones, like bare knuckle fucking character shit was what grabbed me.
Analyzing the hero, the human parts of the superhero, the man behind the super, that sort of aspect of it.
Jay, how about you, man?
I came into comics I came into the comics right after that era where everybody was like, I'm going to make the next existential drama. And none of them did. I came in right in the middle of the mid-aughts, so it was right when it was like the recession into dark comics. So I got pulled in with like the darkest Teen Titans run right after Superboy Prime was made a murderer and stuff like that. Ironically, the thing that got me into comics was Archie comics. I collected those at like Fred Meyer and shit, and I ended up having some crazy big collection of Archie comics I ended up selling forever ago. But that got me dragged into a library where I started reading all of these all of these stories that were probably way too dark for the age I was when I started reading. So the thing that got me into comics was realizing the chasm of content in between Archie Andrews pining over a girl and wanting to go to the football game, and Superboy Prime ripping a guy's arm off and trying to figure out, oh shit, they can do both of these things. Okay, I need to figure out the midpoint somewhere. And really, it just got me into reading every character I could possibly find that looked even mildly interesting, which is what gets you in. And then, I mean, my family also opening a comic shop when I was young, and being able to read all of the independent comics that would come in through all of that sort of stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I just pulled the Chris Farley. That's awesome. But I mean, like, so Rylend, like, who would you compare your writing, if you can like draw from any comic book writer, who would you most relate to?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I don't. The comparisons are odd, and it's like, you know, my influencers are so varied. You know, it's I mean, a lot of my influences are from movies. You know, I mean, just as a creator of content in general, it was the Coen brothers. It was Michael Mann. It was you know, it was, you know, Lethal Weapon and fucking Roadhouse and Die Hard and you know, and then on into fucking Armageddon and fucking you know, The Rock. But then, like, you know, I have my studio film education, so it was fucking Claude Chabrol movies and, you know, Andrei Tarkovsky and stuff like that. But then, you know, if you get into comics, I think I found a comics voice. Like, I realized, like, okay, this could be a place for me. When Garth Ennis was a huge deal for me. You know, there was a time where I owned like every book he had written. You know, like I even went back and was, you know, I was digging up like old war stories he was writing, like back in you know, in the UK before anybody knew who his name was, and his Judge Dredd comics and stuff like that. It was just that sort of bonkers, like anything can fucking happen sort of approach to everything was awesome. And you know, it was similar to what you saw with you know, Lethal Weapon. Like, Lethal Weapon took like a genre and ratcheted up a notch. It was like, well, you know, you had seen police procedurals forever, and it was like, okay, well, the cop's going to go into this house, and he's going to look around, and he's going to dig through this fucking drawer and find a matchbook, and the matchbook has a phone number written in it, and that's going to take him to the next thing. Like, that was not how Lethal Weapon went. Lethal Weapon was like, okay, well, we need to go into this house and we need to get this matchbook. And they walk up to the house, and then the house fucking explodes, right? You know, and it was that shit fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, it's like, okay, well, Lethal Weapon 2 is, you know, you want a moment to breathe, like, as this movie starts, you know, fuck you, we're right in the middle of a goddamn car chase, and like, and shit's blowing up, and that car's flipping, and there's a fucking helicopter with a guy in a machine gun hanging out of it, and he's firing at us, and now Riggs is on foot for some reason, running down the fucking freeway, and it was like, it was that sort of shit, that anything can happen thing, that was just like, oh my god. And like, and Ennis was that comic guy, and then you know, and then Azzarello was a huge influence, just because it was like he had a lot of that, and he had that swagger, but it was like he was more like the Michael Mann, where it was like, you know, it was very calculated, and like you watch what he plots over 100 issues of a comic book series, and how all these things kind of intertwine and come together in a really interesting way. And it
when
was
you
just
talked
like,
about 100 bullets earlier, man, and this is for you and Jay, I always thought 100 bullets would have been the best video game. You just get a gun with 100 bullets, and then fuck it. You gotta. That would be it.
That'd be an amazing strategy game. And
yeah. But that was that was so as Relo. I mean, one of my coolest professional moments was I was at when I was at the Baltimore Comic Con, the year I won my Ringo award, and that was actually the year I met you, Chad.
Yeah.
So I was at the airport, and I'm hungry, and I walk into the barbecue joint at the airport, and I see this interesting this dude with a cool beard sitting at the fucking bar, and I do a double take, and it was Brian Azzarello. And I just walked over, I sat down next to him, and I'm like, hey man, it's I want to shake your hand. Started writing comics not too long ago. Just brought this home. I had my Ringo award with me, and I'm like, and you're a big reason. I was like, I read your comics. You made me want to read comics, and so I just wanted to say thank you. And he's like, sit the fuck down, dude. Like, let's have a chat. So
nicest guy in the world. That weekend though wasn't a good weekend for him. That was the bat penis weekend.
Yeah. It's it was, but he was a lovely person to me. He
loves to talk wrestling too. So how can you go wrong with it?
We didn't get into wrestling. I'll need to get into wrestling next time I'm at a con with him. But yeah, both those. So I was in a booth. I was at the Action Lab booth that whole weekend, and I was directly across from fucking Garth Ennis. Like I could have spit on him if I wanted to, basically. And so that was surreal. Where it's like, okay, I was at that point. I mean, I'd only been doing the comic thing for a year or something like that at that point, and I'm at the fucking Ringo Awards. I got one sitting in front of me, and I'm with my two heroes, or like my two comic heroes that I read when I was a fucking grown up, are just right there.
I absolutely
Crazy.
I love Ennis, and I mean I love the boys. Even the Pro and everything that he's done, and he set up a time to talk to us, and I wasn't anywhere near, and they couldn't find me. And so one of our guys, Drew, got to talk to him, and he was like, "So what are you working on?" He goes, "I'm working on he's got that heavy accent. He's like, "I'm working on this project. I am very, very excited about it. It's about this Russian sharpshooter, and during World War II, and in the Cold War, just going on a little bit." And Drew goes, "Yeah. I got a question. When are we going to see more dog water?" And I'm like, okay.
Where the fuck were you?
That's what you get for not being there, Chad.
I don't know.
Were you passed out in the bathroom?
Probably at that point. I was just stumbling around.
Went to take a piss at the exact wrong fucking time.
That's like it was like Brian K. Vaughan came over to talk to us, and I was standing at his booth because they told me to go wait at his booth, his publicist, and they said, go stand at the booth, wait for him, and then grab him before his line starts. So I'm sitting there. I got there early, and I'm standing there waiting for him to just escort him over. And I'm like, where is he? And they're like, I don't know. He's doing some kind of podcast. I'm like, I thought he was going to do ours. And like, what the heck is going on? Where is it? And then all of a sudden he's walking back, and he's walking with like Great Legend and Carson or John's Comics with Kids, and I'm like, oh, so yeah, okay, that's great.
he was doing your podcast.
Yeah. He did do a podcast, yours.
Yeah.
I was like, oh Jesus.
Yeah. Were you overserved that day?
I was overserved that entire weekend.
Well, yeah. When I met you, because I knew some of the other Comic Core guys.
Yeah,
I was actually on the show, but I never, I didn't meet you.
Yeah.
And then you caught me outside of the convention center. I had my roller suitcase.
Yeah.
I have an Uber pulling up to go to the airport, and you came up to me, and you were like, you were. This is like end of the last day, and so you were like, you were in rare form. I mean, you were slurring your speech, and you were like, but you were so excited. You know what I'm saying? You were just so like, I'm like, wow. You know, and I gave you a card that day.
Yep, and the best part about the whole thing was that when we were down there, like, so there was a herd of us. And we stayed in an Airbnb that it was in the same neighborhood that The Wire was filmed.
Oh yeah, nice.
And it was all bunk beds. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to a hotel. I'm gonna go get a hotel downtown.
Oh,
you skinned out. Wow.
Yeah. I will never laugh at the experience of when I met Chad, because as just some TikTok guy, I get 1,000 fucking random messages from people a day, usually from people with like maybe 2 or 3 followers and no videos. I get these every fucking day. And I'm doing my daily check of my DMs, and random message from Comic Core, which at this point I had no fucking clue who that was, on a TikTok account that had absolutely no followers, with no videos, nothing. And it's just, hey, I have a Comic-Con panel. You want to host it? With nothing to back it up. Nothing at all. Just
awesome.
Hey, how about you stop by? And I'm like, who the fuck is this?
It was a similar way that he approached me, because he so we met at that con, and you know, luckily I knew a lot of the other Comic Core guys, so I knew it was a legit outfit. I'd been on the channel with other people, and you know, I was close with a few of them, but when I met Chad, I mean, he was like, you know, I mean, it was probably one of his top 5 like drunks, you know, and it was funny. It was awesome. And somehow, some way, I gave him a card, you know, and so it's like months later, right?
Pandemic.
I just start getting these messages on my phone. You know, I get like random Pennsylvania number on my phone, and I'm like, okay, well, decline. You know, decline. And then there are these messages like, you know, hey man, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you at I met you at the Baltimore Comic-Con. We're like putting on this online con, and you know, wondering if you want to be a part of it. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? You know,
exactly.
And then finally, I'm like, wait a minute, is it that drunk guy?
I know when he messaged me, and I was like, okay, sure, yeah, Comic-Con, whatever, that sounds cool. And I get on a Zoom call with him, and all he's telling me is all of the people he knows, which sounds like bullshit. It sounds like someone Googled comic book writer and is naming everyone they can read at the exact same time. So I'm just sitting there like, yeah, sure, sounds good. I'll think about it. And I had to like go and research afterward just to be like, is this guy fucking with me? Am I about to get scammed? Am I what the fuck is about to happen?
For the ask, right?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for like, okay, so you just need to put down like $1,000. Yeah, we just need you to invest a couple of bucks to start this off.
Yeah. Seriously, we'll get it right back to you. Like in 2 days, you'll have tripled your money.
100%. I can. How many times in our first meeting did I ask, do I need to do anything?
I'm like, nah, just show up.
Just show up. And I'm like, so I don't need to sign anything. And he's like, no, there's no contract or anything. And I'm like, this is getting sketchier by the fucking minute. What the fuck do you mean? This doesn't. I can get you connected to everyone who exists in comics. Just do nothing. Just sit there. It'll work itself out.
Yeah, I mean, Rylend, he throws out a tweet like, "Hey, Rylend, I'll do this. Yeah, okay, cool. Let me get the details. Okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll ask people." And then it's like a herd of the Rylend followers just show up, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!"
That was populating that con. That was Yeah, I mean, it's you caught the right guy, because it's like my you know, I mean, I am a like we win together person, you know what I'm saying? And so if I get an opportunity, like a door opens for me, and my first instinct is to try to jam a dozen of my friends through it before it closes. and so when Chad's like, so, well, you know, we have this con and we need creators for it. So, you know, I didn't even let him finish the sentence. I was just like, shh.
I got a couple. Hold on.
Yeah. And so, you know, it took some other Comic Core people being like, do we really need 30 of these people? And but those were great cons, you know.
Yeah, dude, they were so much fun, and we've had a blast. And honestly, we've been talking for an hour. I'm gonna have to get going here in a second because my dog's he's standing here with his legs crossed. But do you want to? You want to sell it again, man, or do you want Panda to? I rather let Panda.
Yeah. Let Panda rock it. Yeah.
Put me on the spot here. Okay.
Do it up. Tee it high and let it fly, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Chet, when is it coming? Can you give me some fucking information so I'm not just talking to my ass here?
Yes, absolutely. So drops in August, end of August. I believe it's like August 26th. It is in June previews right now, and yeah.
Okay, go and check out wherever you can buy comics around August 26th. I've read the entire first issue. It is absolutely worth it. It's a fucking it is a fucking roller coaster ride of a comic. Like I said, it reads exactly how a movie feels. You can feel it playing in your head the entire time. Any basic fictional monster fighter that you can think of is at the very least referenced and pulled from in this book, and it feels very, very fun to read. I'm going to see how many I can cram into this.
That's okay.
Just throw it out there. Honestly,
guys,
go and check it out. It's a ton of fun. It was a great.
It was a pretty solid endorsement. Go to your local comic shop right the fuck now and pre-order it. Pre-order the whole thing.
And I'm going to. I didn't tell anybody this, but I'm the Mandalorian on his cover.
Oh,
One
of
them.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Do you have the image or no?
Yeah, you said. Oh wait, I do. Shit.
Yeah.
I think you texted it to me, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll. Yeah. So, random 80s thing that I got to tell you guys. This weekend, I am not going to be on Friday night show because I am going to Deep Creek, Maryland, to go see Tim Capello. Do you guys know who he is?
Who's Tim Capello? Why does the name sound familiar?
He's the saxophone player in Lost Boys.
Oh wow, really?
Oh,
going to a concert in Deep Creek.
That's really. Oh wow, does he still go shirtless with like the long hair?
He's got it all.
Wow, that is incredible,
guys. If you haven't checked it out, check out Suicide Jockeys. You haven't checked it out. It's coming out in August. It's phenomenal. It's the best. Check out Writer's Block every Wednesday with Rylend. Go over to Panda Red. Check out Panda Red on TikTok, also on YouTube, and that's it. In the words of the great legend, God bless. Good night. Peace. See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.